Larry Caputo Jr., the son of Long Island medium star Theresa Caputo, is in the hospital with renal issues and has been prescribed medication and rest for the time being, with doctors saying there are no serious consequences at this time and not recommending surgery. Theresa Caputo, a mother who is deeply worried, resorted to her social media page to ask all of her friends and admirers to pray for her son, believing that prayer will have a powerful effect and hasten his recovery. Theresa Caputo, whose son, Larry Jr., had been hospitalized a day earlier due to kidney problems, sat in a quiet corner of her Long Island home with her hands clasped tightly around a rosary. The doctors assured her that there was no immediate danger and no need for surgery, but a mother's heart knew no peace. Always the tough one, Larry Jr. had attempted to dismiss it, saying, "Mom, it's nothing. Rest and a few medications." He had half smiled when he responded, "I'll be out in no time," but Theresa could tell he was tired and a little afraid, which he was trying to cover. When she couldn't sleep that night, she did what she always did in difficult situations. She went to her community. She put a message on her social media page with shaking fingers. "Pray for my son, please. I think that prayer and group love have great power. Let's raise Larry up in healing and brightness." The reaction that followed caught her off guard. Fans from all over the world lit candles, sent blessings in many languages, shared their own healing stories, and even traveled to local churches to pray for Larry Jr. as thousands of messages flooded in. The physicians were astonished, but happy when Larry Jr. woke up the following morning with a weird sensation of serenity. The agony had subsided, and the monitors next to him displayed improved readings. One of them said, "Looks like your body is responding better than expected." With her typical flair and a cup of coffee in hand, Theresa arrived that morning and grinned through watery eyes, whispering, "See? Told you prayer works." Larry Jr.'s health continued to improve in the days that followed, and he healed more quickly than anybody had anticipated. Although he still rolled his eyes when his mother became overly spiritual, he secretly started to think that perhaps, just perhaps, there was some truth to her beliefs. Theresa lit a candle by her window that evening and silently thanked God and all the strangers whose prayers had reached her son's healing heart and reverberated across the cosmos. But Emily Carson was 8 months pregnant and waiting in line outside the small theater in Huntington where Theresa Caputo, the renowned Long Island medium, was holding one of her group readings. Emily hadn't planned to be there, but her cousin had given her the ticket because she thought Emily needed a little closure. It was a breezy autumn afternoon in Long Island, the kind that painted the leaves in shades of gold and fire. Although Emily didn't believe in mediums, or at least didn't think she did, her world had fallen apart since her father died in an unexpected accident 6 months prior. He had been her pillar of support, her hero, and the person she looked forward to having by her side during the most significant stage of her life, becoming a mother. Spirit doesn't wait. Theresa Caputo, with her trademark long hair and dazzling personality, said as she paced slowly with her hands outstretched inside the theater. A father figure stepping forward, strong presence, very protective. "He's talking about a baby, says he's been watching over a baby that hasn't been born yet." Emily's hands automatically cradled her belly as her heart skipped a beat. "You, in the 3rd row. Pink scarf, are you expecting?" Theresa asked, turning to face Emily. "Yes," Emily said, nodding, her throat constricted. "Tell my girl she's not alone. I'm still walking beside her, especially now," Theresa said, tilting her head and narrowing her gaze. "He keeps showing me a hospital room, but there's a light around you and the baby. He says the name Michael. Is that your dad's name?" Emily's eyes filled with tears. "Yes, that's him. He claims that you talk to him, that he hears you, especially at night when you're scared, and that he has already held the baby. He says she's strong like her mother, and give her my name somehow." Emily broke down because it felt like a sign. She had thought about giving her baby girl the middle name Michaela just a week ago, but she had kept it a secret. "He's showing me rocking the baby in his arms. He's at peace, and he's proud of you. He says, you'll be a better parent than you think. I raised you right," Theresa said with a kind smile and a softer voice. Emily remained motionless, But something inside her had changed. The weight of grief, though still there, had somewhat subsided, replaced by a warm, unexplainable calm. The crowd was hushed, with many people wiping away their own tears. Emily put her hands on her belly and strolled out into the cold dusk after the event. With her eyes fixed on the sky, she muttered, "I know you're here, Dad, and she'll know you, too." But when Theresa Caputo, the famous medium with the unmistakable big hair and even bigger personality, decided to try something new on a crisp autumn afternoon on Long Island, her daughter Victoria suggested archery as a way to de-stress and escape the constant hum of energy that surrounded Theresa's daily life, where spirits were constantly trying to get her attention, and sometimes she just needed a break. Wearing a form-fitting tracksuit and carrying a brand-new pink and black compound bow, Theresa appeared more like she was heading to a photo shoot than a sporting event, but she was both excited and anxious about the archery range, which was tucked away in the woods, away from the bustle of the city and the allure of the opposite side. Victoria helped her set the arrow and said, "Okay, just breathe, Mom. Line it up and let it go." With her acrylic nails gently grasping the bowstring, Theresa inhaled deeply, pulled back, concentrated on the target, and let go. Thunk! The arrow struck the target's edge. It wasn't flawless, but it wasn't horrible either. Victoria gave a clap, saying, "See? Not bad for your first try." When Theresa turned her head to gaze into the woods, she noticed a change in the air, a little dip in temperature, and a faint whisper that touched her ear. "Theresa." She narrowed her eyes and looked around the trees, asking, "Did you hear that?" "Listen to what?" Victoria said. "My name was said by a voice." "Don't do this now. We should be relaxing," Victoria scowled. However, it was too late. Theresa sensed a change in energy, the familiar buzzing in her head, the tingling in her limbs, and knew that someone was close. She focused and closed her eyes. "A young man in his mid-20s with an athletic build is approaching me. He says his name is Brian or possibly Brandon. He's showing me an arrow, but it's actually a hunting bow, and he's telling me it wasn't an accident." "Mom, we're in the middle of nowhere," Victoria said, her face going white. Theresa murmured, "I know, but he's here, trying to get in touch with someone. Tell her I'm sorry. Tell her it wasn't her fault," the whisper said, growing louder this time. "His sister," Theresa whispered out loud. "He's talking about his sister. He says she carries guilt, that she still blames herself even though she was supposed to be with him that day." A stranger, in her mid-30s, was startled to see Theresa when she abruptly entered the range from the trail, her eyes red as though she had been crying. The woman exhaled. "Oh my God, are you Theresa Caputo?" "I think I'm supposed to talk to you, honey," Theresa said with a soft grin. "It's my brother, Brandon. He died in a hunting accident 3 years ago, right in these woods. I was supposed to go with him that morning, but I had to work. I've never forgiven myself," the woman said, bending her knees and sitting on the closest bench. "He says you have to stop carrying that pain. He says it was never your fault, that it was just his time. And he's so proud of you for coming here today. He says this was no accident. He led you here," Theresa said, the tears streaming down her face. Theresa reached out and took the woman's hand while she sobbed and covered her face. Everything was quiet for a while, save for the wind, which rustled the leaves in a voice that sounded almost appreciative. Later, Victoria glanced at her mother as they packed up their equipment. "So much for unwinding. Honey, even in archery class, the spirits choose me, not the other way around." Theresa laughed. The whispers of connection, closure, and serenity, the kind that only the Long Island medium could provide, were carried by the wind as they made their way back to the car. But Emma Cole entered the small, candlelit room on Long Island on a crisp October morning, with a faint classical melody playing in the background and the aroma of sage in the air. She had come from Vermont with her suitcase and the burden of unfathomable grief, as she hadn't slept a full night since her husband, Michael, died in a kayaking accident on Lake Champlain 6 months prior. Theresa Caputo, the Long Island medium, was mentioned by a friend as someone who could connect with the dead. Emma had never heard back when she submitted her name, but 2 weeks ago she received a call saying, "Theresa would like to meet with you." Emma had always been skeptical of mediums. She didn't watch the shows, and she didn't believe in signs from beyond. However, the pain had become ingrained in her bones, and she became curious out of desperation. They sat opposite each other, Emma's fingers twisting the hem of her sweater, Theresa Caputo greeting her with warm eyes and a homey hug, dressed in her trademark high heels and beautifully styled hair, carrying herself like someone who'd spent a lifetime navigating emotional storms. Theresa closed her eyes and inhaled before Emma could say anything. Gently, she inquired, "Did someone pass in the water?" Emma's lips parted and her eyes expanded, but she made no sound. "He tells me it happened so quickly. He was paddling 1 minute, and then the water swallowed him the next." Emma's eyes filled with tears. "Michael," she muttered. "He tells you that he didn't suffer. You always worried that he didn't say goodbye, but he did that morning. When he kissed your forehead," Theresa said, nodding. As Emma pretended to sleep, Michael kissed her forehead as his final act before departing that morning, causing her breath to catch in her throat. Theresa put her palm to her breast and added, "He's showing me a red kayak and something about the compass you gave him." "I gave him a compass on our anniversary, and he kept it in the kayak," Emma exclaimed. "He says, 'Tell her I still have it with me.' Every direction leads back to her," Theresa said with a soft smile. Then the floodgates opened and Emma cried, but this time she cried with something new, relief. She felt as like she could breathe for the first time in months. Theresa, who seemed to be able to see something Emma couldn't, remarked, "He's also showing me a tree. Maybe a willow? He says you sit under it sometimes." "That's our tree. In the backyard. I talked to him there," Emma said, nodding. Theresa remarked, "He hears everything you say." Even though there was no physical miracle at the end of the nearly hour-long session, Emma left the room altered. Her sadness was still there, but it no longer made her feel empty, and somewhere behind a curtain, Michael was still listening, caring and watching. She grinned as she arrived at her car and noticed that, for the first time, the clouds didn't appear to be as heavy. But Theresa Caputo was getting ready for a routine house reading with a new client on a typical Thursday morning in Hicksville, Long Island, after finishing her third cup of hazelnut coffee. Clad in leopard print and heels that defied gravity, she had no idea that the spirit she was about to meet would be anything but ordinary. The Costanzas, an elderly couple, claimed that their home was haunted by someone who keeps changing the TV to reruns of the Golden Girls and stuffing cannolis in the fridge overnight, rather than a malevolent spirit. Theresa came inside the house with her customary assurance, curious and little amused. "He has the driest sense of humor I've ever experienced from the other side, and he's saying, 'Tell these people to stop throwing out my cannolis.'" She added, her eyes wide, "I'm getting a strong energy in this house," she remarked. "That's Uncle Frankie," the Costanzas exclaimed. Theresa's distinctive Long Island accent intensified as she laughed nervously, and she staggered a little as the spiritual connection deepened. "He's mooning me from the spirit realm. This man is so ridiculous. Oh my God." Theresa suddenly started laughing uncontrollably. "I apologize, but I can't take him seriously," he said in my ear, whispering, "Ask Em if they ever found my teeth in the lasagna." She tried to calm herself, but the spirit wasn't finished, and her mascara started to run as she laughed more and her cheeks started to water. "He claims to have been playing tricks on your Alexa. I ordered the glittery flamenco costume, not Amazon." Theresa was now on the ground, clutching her stomach and laughing so uncontrollably that the camera crew had to pause the shot to give her some tissues. Gazing at one another in disbelief, the Costanza said, "That explains why Alexa keeps screaming, 'Welcome to the Frankie Show' at 3 a.m. Theresa finally recovered enough to complete the session, and she shook her head incredulously as she walked out of the house. "That one was the Robin Williams of the afterlife, but I've communicated with thousands of spirits." She replied, "Frankie, you better behave up there, or at least send me a warning before you moon me again," as she got back in her car and gazed up at the sky. A box of cannolis, a rubber chicken, and a letter that said, "Boo, were delivered to her house inexplicably the next day. Frankie, but when Lisa finally made the decision to schedule a private reading with Theresa Caputo, the Long Island medium, it was on a soggy October afternoon. Lisa had watched Theresa on TV for months, seeing how she helped bereaved families connect with their departed loved ones, but she wasn't sure she deserved that kind of peace, and she wasn't even sure she could face her greatest fear, which was that her son would be angry with her for her decision. Just after his 19th birthday, Lisa's son Jake was diagnosed with a rare and aggressive brain tumor. He bravely fought for 6 months, undergoing surgeries, chemotherapy, and radiation, but his condition only got worse. In his final days, Jake was unable to speak and the pain was excruciating. Lisa had to make a decision that no mother should ever have to make, whether to keep him on life support or let him pass away quietly. She decided to release him. She thought about those last few hours all the time, the beeping equipment, the quiet hum of hospital monitors, the silence after the last breath. Was it the right thing to do? Did he realize how much she loved him? It tormented her every day. A year later, she found herself sitting across from Theresa in a warm and inviting room with candles, soothing music, and the heady aroma of lavender. Theresa came in with her typical warmth and energy, her golden hair pulled back, her bracelets jangling softly as she walked. "I want to start by telling you, Lisa," she continued, "that there's a very strong young man here with you. He claims to be your son. His energy is beautiful. He is very calm." Lisa hadn't spoken yet, but her eyes instantly filled with tears. "I hear the sound of alarms stopping, and he shows me a hospital room with a lot of machines. He shows me someone holding his hand. Were you holding his hand when he passed away?" "Yes," Lisa said in a broken murmur. "Tell Mom that she made the right choice, that I was ready, that I was exhausted, and that I knew she was doing it out of love, and not to give up," he says. "I've been carrying that guilt for a year," Lisa said, covering her mouth as she sobbed. "He says you gave him peace, that he wasn't scared because you were there. You made sure his last moments were filled with love, not fear," Theresa said, leaning forward gently. Lisa was unable to speak as a peculiar sort of relief, not precisely happiness, spread through her chest, a warmth she hadn't had in months. "He's showing me sunflowers, too. Did he enjoy them, or have you been seeing them a lot lately?" "I planted some in our backyard this summer. They bloomed last week," Lisa said, nodding. "They were his favorite. That's him. He's letting you know he's still with you." Theresa continued to bring up love messages and small memories that only Jake and Lisa could have experienced, and Lisa left that reading feeling lighter than when she had entered, not because her sadness had gone away, but because, for the first time, she was free of doubt. Lisa put her palm over her heart and muttered, "Thank you, Jake. I love you," as she stood in the backyard that evening, looking at the tall, golden sunflowers waving in the breeze. And she heard a whisper back, fluttering through the petals in the gentle wind. "Mom, I also love you." Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Mina, and I hope you're having a great day. Please remember to subscribe to my channel if you enjoy the video.